and welcome back to yet another video. This week I am continuing on with my Cardcaptor Sakura costume. Last week I made the super fluffy petticoat slash structural layer that goes underneath everything. If you want to see that, I will link it up top down below. And this week I am going to be making the white dress that goes underneath the red one. So without any further ado, let's dive on in. Let's break down her white dress before we begin. Pattern wise, these are things I was looking for. I needed something with a high neck collar bit, and I needed puffy sleeves with little bits hanging out the bottom. And for the skirt, I need it to be completely full. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Simplicity 8444, and as you can see, this pattern has the perfect high neck, it has the perfect puffy sleeves. The only issue with it is that it has a button up front, which I don't want, so I'm just going to take that out of the front and put it into the back where you don't see it. For the skirt part of the dress, I'm just going to draft a circle skirt and add it to the bottom of the blouse. I'll probably do 2 layers of a circle skirt as well. And for the edges on the sleeves, the neck and the skirt, I have designed this embroidery to give it that nice scalloped edge that hers has. Fabric wise, I have this gorgeous cotton jacquard. It has this really lovely sakura flower design woven throughout it, so I was like, how perfect is that? So yeah, that's everything I need to start this project. Let us begin. Alright, let's talk alterations on the pattern pieces. So this is the original bodice front here, and this is my altered version. The first thing you're going to notice is it's a lot shorter. That is because I have taken the pattern piece up to the waistline. That is where I want the bottom edge of the bodice of the dress to sit on me. The second thing you'll notice is I have done away with the button placard in the front here, and instead I have the front cut on a center fold so that the front bit of fabric here will be all one piece on the dress. And here's the back piece in a similar fashion. I have also shortened the waist on this one so that it ends at the waist. And then I have added an extra 1.5 centimeters in the center edge here, and that is so that I can cut this as 2 pieces rather than on the fold like this one calls for. And that's because I have moved the closure of the blouse into the back, and I will be putting a zipper down the center back. After altering the patterns, it is of course time to cut everything out. I then use this ancient Simplicity tracing paper, and I put it in between the layers of fabrics and trace off any of the notches and landmarks such as the darts. After the tracing is done, it is then time to sew the first part, which is the darts. Next I sew the front and back pieces together at the shoulders and side seams. Alright, so I've sewn the front and back pieces together of the bodice. I have also done one of the sleeves. I'll show you guys how to do that in a little bit. But yeah, happy with the overall shape of it. Now let's make a sleeve. Here I'm drawing in the bottom edge of the shirt sleeve, and that is to use as a guide because I will in fact be embroidering these, which you'll see later. And I need all that excess fabric so that I can fit it in the embroidery hoop. Then using the carbon paper once again, I trace in the elastic guideline. Now onto the embroidery. After getting the sleeve all hooped up, I then transfer it to my machine, and then I program in the scalloped edge embroidery, which I designed myself. I then do the scalloped edge embroidery all along that line, which was the bottom edge of the sleeve that I drew in earlier. Repeating this process until the entire bottom edge of the sleeve is covered in the scallop trim. Once the whole sleeve has been embroidered, the fun part comes. I get to tear away the tear-away stabilizer. Then using my embroidery scissors, I then trim away the excess fabric around the outside of the embroidered edge. Once all the fabric has been trimmed away, it's on to assembling the actual sleeve. So the first thing I do is run a loose gathering stitch along the top edge of the sleeve. Then I sew a biceps width of elastic along that guideline that we drew earlier. I do this by using a zigzag stitch and pulling the elastic slightly as I go. Then I fold the sleeve in half and sew it together. As you can see, I now have both of the sleeves done. They're not attached to the actual bodice itself yet, and that is because I don't think they are puffy enough. At the moment they hang pretty limp, and we want big magical girl energy. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is, if you remember back to the Vogue dress that I made for Halloween last year, they had a little insert that went into this part here that helped with keeping the sleeves puffy. So I'm thinking I'm going to make some of those and put them in here so that they're nice and puffy and not sad and limp. First things first, I cut the pattern pieces out of a white drill that I just had lying around. And then again from some white iron-on interfacing. I then apply the interfacing to the wrong side of the drill. Next I fold the inserts in half, and then I run a gathering stitch along that curved edge you see there. I then pull the stitches by hand and look, gathered. And here is the difference one of those sleeve head makes. So as you can see, the sleeve head is currently in this sleeve and I'm yet to put one in there. What a difference. First you sew just the sleeve into the bodice. And then I put the insert in the top edge of the sleeve and sew that in place too. Now onto the collar. So the first thing I do is apply interfacing to the wrong side of it. Then I take a long length of that scalloped edge trim that I made earlier, I run it through my machine on a gathering stitch, and then I pin that onto the inside of the collar and sew it in place. After trimming away the excess fabric that was on the trim, I then apply the second piece of the collar and sew that down in place too. Then I sewed the collar into the neckline of the bodice. So as you can see, the top part of the underdress is now done, the collar is attached, really happy with the whole silhouette of it. Now onto the skirt. Originally I was just going to do 2 layers of a circle skirt and then do the embroidered edge along the bottom of it. However, I had an epiphany last night while I was sleeping. What I think I'm going to do now is do 2 smaller circle skirts that probably only come the length of this hoop skirt, and then I'm using the same fabric as the blouse. I'm going to do 1 long strip of embroidered trim and gather it up and then sew it along the bottom edge of the skirt, and what that'll do is it'll give me even more volume along the bottom edge of the skirt rather than it just laying flat on top of each other. So let's give it a go. For the circle skirts I'm using a really lightweight cotton muslin just because I didn't want it weighing down the petticoat layer. I mark out my waist measurement, and then for the length I'm having it just long enough to cover the hoop skirt layer of the petticoat. I'm also cutting out both layers of the circle skirt at once. For the embroidered edge along the bottom I'm using the same fabric that the rest of the bodice is made out of, and I'm just cutting out some long strips which I'll then sew together to create one continuous strip. Once all the strips are sewn together, I then head over to my embroidery machine and run that scalloped edge trim right along the bottom edge for an eternity.
2 days later.
Hello and welcome to a new day. It has now officially been 2 days of me making the trim to go along the bottom edge of the 2 skirt layers. I did it the same way you saw me make the neck one, only I just did it on a really long strip of the fabric. But hey, it's done now, and all I have to do now is run the top edge here through the gathering foot on my machine and then stitch it to the skirt, put the zip in the back, And this is finally done. I am so happy because, my gosh, this drove me insane. I was supervising my machine for 2 days straight, feeling like Bella Swan in that one scene from New Moon. You know the one I'm talking about. But it's done. Let's move on.
さくらさん、ご飯ができますよ。
And there you have it. That is how I made the white dress portion for my Cardcaptor Sakura costume. I am so happy with how it came out. I absolutely adore the puffiness of the sleeves. I think putting the sleeve caps in it was the right way to go. I love the embroidered edge along the bottom, so spending 2 days on that, worth it in the end. As you can see, I have completed the rest of the costume, so if you would like to see how I made the rest of it, do stick around and consider subscribing. Next week I'll be releasing the red dress portion, followed by the accessories and then the props as well, so stick around for that. If you do like what you saw here today, do consider dropping a like. I usually do a lot of sewing, crafting and fun related things here on this channel. I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye!